Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, August 19th. I am starting particularly late today. The problem with insomnia and sleeping pills as I keep using them, and these are just over-the-counter sleeping pills, which probably are not powerful enough, and that's part of the problem, is if I take them and I've been going to sleep at like 6 in the morning recently in the past week or so, and then waking up at like 5 in the evening. It doesn't really help if you take them at 10 p.m. or midnight or something, because it does not do the one thing you'd want sleeping pills to do, and that the over-the-counter pills don't seem to do, which is force you to fall asleep within like 5 minutes or so. So yeah, that sucks. So that's why I'm late, is simply I've just been sleeping at the wrong schedule. We're on the Asian account, 60 warrior class cards, spells, and minions that cost 2 or less. We're on the Asian account because we want to do the Tavern Brawl. I guess warrior would be what we needed. We needed to play warrior and mage if we get lucky, but definitely warrior to start off with. And let's get our one victory, and then we'll get into ranked play after that. I yesterday really did intend to start playing Torchlight. I did the research. I'm starting to look at it. Torchlight oddly looks like it's a slightly shorter game than what I would have thought, unless you want to play it twice through, which is great, frankly, because playing Torchlight 1 is something that's really just a matter of, I would like to do this so that I can then move on to Torchlight 2. I'd like to just cover the basic story, and that's it. I don't have a great desire to try and get every single achievement. Like, one of the achievements for Torchlight 1 is fish 1,000 fish. I don't think you're likely to do that, even if there is some kind of even if there is some kind of crazy system that auto fishes, and it would be as a system of just starting the fishing procedure and then leaving, and playing the game twice through, not really desirable. Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2, very possibly the only footage for November and possibly even December. I've been working on my server for a while, and it goes in cycles, and it's a lot of 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. The Nextcloud Dropbox replacement that does a lot more than what Dropbox does, or Google Drive does. Frankly, Nextcloud as a service integrates a lot of very disparate different things into one nice location. So that being an element, I should have waited to attack that first turn, shouldn't I? Like, I've screwed up the installation on that a couple times and had to reinstall it. I did not have snapshot backups enabled, and I hope I do now on the RAID array. I had snapshots backups enabled on the SSD hard drive. My server probably limited by CPU and RAM. You're talking a 7-year-old CPU and RAM and just equipment in general, and where hard drive speeds really haven't increased much in 7 years. A lot of other things certainly have, but I don't know how easy it would be to replace the motherboard and replace the replace the CPU and replace the RAM and all of that equipment without it also being a full reinstall yet again, and I am definitely not in a position where I want that to happen. Let's see. This and this. Up. And it being a little slow just doesn't mean a lot. I set up a service to speed up the processor and cache a lot of the PHP, which is Perl hosting protocol or something like that. Their interactive web pages, anything that's .php is compiled and executed in theory every time it's accessed, and that's not an efficient way to run anything. So there's a couple of softwares. There's one called Memcached, there's one called Redis, which would let you redistribute the traffic to different servers, act as accelerators in kind of like Cloudflare does. And then the oldest one was APC, and that was replaced with APCU. So I set that up to work, I think, at least for Nextcloud. I don't know if it works for Apache or anything else. I found a different service. I'm going to abandon trying to install MineOS, which is the Minecraft server manager, in favor of installing something called Pterodactyl, which is a video game server software in general. So the idea there is, let's see how this works. Oh, it can attack things without taunt. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that would have worked, but okay. That's how you want to play it. Probably gonna lose here unless I can survive 2 turns somehow, which I might be able to do. Let's see.
Wanna blow something up?
Job's done.
Well, that's maybe saved me by 1. Yeah, I'm gonna lose here. Definitely gonna lose here. So yeah, I'm gonna try to install Pterodactyl. I'm giving up on a separate web browser for a Calibre web browser. Instead, I'm going to integrate that into Nextcloud. I should have, or at least I'm going to try to do that, or I'm just going to give up on that in general, because frankly, I've jumped through enough hoops, and that's where a lot of this is just coming down to, is that I've spent too much time on it already. I don't think my security is quite as tight as I want it with Pure Guardian, and I'm still haven't figured out how to get Rydo, the DLNA Universal Plug and Play server, working right. But I am getting to a point too where it's working good enough, and I'm trusting the RAID array to sit back well enough that I can just live with it and ignore it for a while, and then and then maybe work with it some more on less frequent occasions, particularly days after I stream. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday would be great days to work on the server until it's completely finished, whereas Tuesday and Thursday starting tomorrow I think is going to be days where I'm going to really focus on recording other content, because I never record any content on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after Hearthstone anyways. So I should just recognize that in myself and say, yeah, that's never going to happen, so that this is the good time to do that. There was something else I thought of, but I can't remember it now.
Job's done.
Yeah, I've got the RAID set up well enough that I'm running Windows backup. I've figured out how to connect and share through Samba, the Windows file sharing protocol. Apparently Windows 10 is updated to the point where it does not scan the network anymore, so you have to actually just type in the name of the server. It's just like / the name of the server, and then you can reach it and start looking at what folders are there. So after a while I mapped the network drive to it, set up the old-fashioned Windows backup to it, and there's actually a backup occurring right now, and that's not likely to really affect my internet speed really by much of any, because it's just going from one place to the other. Definitely gonna have a big project on setting up IP version 6. That's something I need to see done at some point. Taunt minion in my hand. I don't have a taunt minion in my hand, unfortunately. So I can play the card, but that wouldn't be very helpful. Yeah. I have this slight fear because I haven't ever configured IP version 6 that I might be getting slower internet speed because of it. I doubt it. That'd be kind of silly, but...
Shall we put a kink in their plans?
Let's see. In the turn there. So, is there anything else to talk about? It's like, I got really close to starting to record games. I need to definitely get back into recording games. In general, in the wake of the whole shenanigans with having to replace a water heater, my budget is definitely shot to the point where it's frustration, because all of a sudden you went from, or I went from, oh, I'm fine, to, oh, actually now I'm kind of gonna have to scrape and struggle. So if there were any kind of game that came out or anything like that that was even a few dollars, I think I'd have to skip it. Which is inherently just an example of not saving enough. Particularly when you're maintaining a house, you need to have well, let's see, I'd say several thousand, $4,000 or $5,000 extra in savings when you buy your house, just in case something breaks. And almost nobody has that. That's part of the scam of first-time home buyers. Is that they will convince you to buy, or push you to buy as much as you can possibly buy instead of what you can actually afford, which would be much less. So yeah, and they sell you on the idea of a forever house as a first-time home buyer, but almost certainly that's not the case, because if you're working somewhere, if you have to move, if any kind of a thing changes, like your job moves, you move, you get divorced, anything at all happens in the rest of your life, which almost certainly something is going to happen. You're going to end up selling the house, or you're just not going to like your first house, or it's not going to be big enough for your family, because you're going to have more kids. So while I am moderately suggesting that people buy houses instead of renting and flushing that money down the toilet, often you'll find that the price of a mortgage versus the price of renting is basically the same. I think you also should, in your first house as a first-time home buyer, probably think of it as, oh, this is just temporary. I'm going to save up my money. I'm going to do the bare minimum to maintain it. I'm not going to do fancy things. I'm not going to replace the carpet with wood tile floors and things like that. That might be something you might do when you're deep into your career, in your like 40s or 50s. Might as well just play these cards.
Out of my way! Already attacked.
So yeah, I'm not super happy being low on budget. That's kind of obvious to say. That's probably all the catch-up I can really say, though. Is I really spent an entire day on the server just going backwards and forwards with it, like just going backwards and forwards. So let's start then. I'll kill myself if I do that, so we'll do this. And then we'll do this.
Need a key?
Let's see. I'm gonna lose again. I suppose, and this is really a example of an example of where I just really do not have a good schedule at all. And like, I don't know when E3 really is going to happen. I don't know when Gamescom is going to happen. I don't know when PAX West is going to happen. Those kind of events that definitely affect the video game world are something that I have just failed to really spend any time to scheduling. And because of that, I've been surprised. In fact, I was directly whining about how there really wasn't a lot of great news in the past week. And it turns out the reason for that is Gamescom happened. And so Gamescom being the big German video game convention, it is the E3 of Europe, for lack of a better term. And so there's a ton of Gamescom news that has come out, and it certainly explains why on Steam there wasn't a lot of good quality games coming out for the past week or two. I definitely need to fix that, and I'll see what I can do to correct that. In particular, I think the best way is I'll try and get a calendar on my calendar setup that has video game events. This is something a mainstream video game journalist would know. They'd have their calendar locked in tight. They would have all kinds of exclusives and things that they know are coming out. They would have the schedule and the release dates. OpenCritic has some of that. It has like the release dates of games, but I don't have notifications on the OpenCritic calendar enabled, so it might be as simple a problem as just enabling notifications on the OpenCritic calendar that I already have set up, and then I'd be more informed, particularly if I set those notifications to be a week ahead, or I don't know if you can set multiple notifications. One of the weird things about Nextcloud is that you can synchronize your calendar and your contacts, but it wants you to use this other 2 pieces of software, both of which are open source but cost money on the Google Play Store, so you have to go to F-Droid to download them, and one's called like CalDAV or DAV, or CardDAV. That's the technology between it, and the setup's not particularly great. Also, the Nextcloud app for Android doesn't have an easy way to back up folders that already exist. It just has an auto upload function where it will watch folders and upload new things to those folders, which doesn't work particularly well. In fact, the uploading in the app doesn't seem like it's particularly the greatest uploading protocol in the first place, and could use an update. But yeah, there's several new apps I've had to install just to replace old apps because they've been abandoned and don't work. We are getting to the point where Android is a very mature version of an operating system, in the same way that Linux is a very mature version of an operating system, where there are just softwares that they got abandoned for one reason or another. Either they're perfect as they are and they don't need any more changes, and then what eventually happens, like particularly in Android, is Android will change its permission or how you access files or something like that. They've done that, and then because the procedure changes and the permissions change, the old apps never get updated, so they don't work anymore, or they don't work as well.
Reporting for duty.
So yeah, there's a level and system there.
Reporting for duty.
Over this minion takes damage, deal theater hero. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, a lot of updating, a lot of changing. Seems like a lot of times, every few years you have to just start over from scratch and say, here's this program that I want to do this, that I want to automate this, and is this still the right program to use, or is there a better program to use? Alright, start talking about video games though. Gamatsu has a Switch announcement. Monster Rancher port has been confirmed for the Switch. They really seem like they are trying to bring back Monster Rancher. No, I was gonna say Digimon. Digimon, it felt like they were trying to bring back, but I guess the third of the Pokemon Digimon tier would be Monster Rancher, which was by far way less popular in the West, so getting ported to Switch. Now, inherently, there's a problem with re-releasing or porting Monster Rancher. The Gamatsu article also says other platforms are still unconfirmed. The problem with Monster Rancher is that it was, I believe, a PS2 game. Let's see. Yeah, I think it was a PS2 game, Monster Rancher was. And so PS2 used CD-ROMs, and you could take the game out after it loaded, and then put in any other random CD-ROM you were interested in, and it would basically classify a CD-ROM as a monster and just randomly generate, cut and paste elements together to make the monsters. This inherently made Monster Rancher's monsters not that interesting to look at, and they had a few special ones that you always got, or that they showed in their short run, not so popular cartoon. But the vast majority of the random ones nobody would ever see, and the concept was slightly interesting. It's not a terrible concept for its time, but it was significantly beaten by just a better cartoon to sell it to more kids as far as Pokemon and Digimon had, and not really doing anything too special. Whereas Monster Rancher, I think you were just a kid in a world where monsters always existed, where Pokemon, you were a kid who was new kind of to this world, or at least in the anime. Ash Ketchum seemed to know absolutely nothing about Pokemon in a world that was centered 100% around Pokemon. So you kind of had that, and Digimon went with the full isekai idea of the children were brought into a different world, a digital world. And frankly, if you were to put the concepts side by side, I would say Digimon is the best, safest concept to have gone with, because these kids really didn't lose any time or miss any school when they were in the digital world. Time moved differently, they said, at least in the English translations. Who knows what it said in the Japanese version. You were assumedly a bit safer in that way, although they didn't really push that too much, because because it's just this digital world. I think at a certain point you get, for little kids, you should probably just set it in a video game world where the kids are playing video games, and not add that extra element of danger. I think that's something that would be appreciated by parents, probably not so much by the kids. But yeah, Monster Rancher getting ported to the Switch, the best thing you can say about it, and the weird thing you can say about it, is it's kind of another example of something that would have been a Sony PlayStation exclusive. It would make a lot more sense if Monster Rancher was being released if it was being released on the PlayStation digitally, then it makes sense being released on the Switch. So it seems like it's another example of, I guess that would be Bandai Namco in this case. I think owns Monster Rancher, just not getting treated well enough to make an exclusive for the PlayStation, which inherently, I think that is a big part of the issue that happens with the PlayStation, is they really don't treat their history too well. So you don't get a lot of old re-releases as much as you could. Nintendo hasn't been much better. They're slowly getting better about re-releasing NES games, but frankly, they should have been a little more on the ball and earlier about re-releasing Super NES games and Nintendo 64 games that they can re-release. I'm gonna try and go through these bad games on Steam, because there's a few of them still, really quickly. Here's a game called Lab 3D that's clearly a polygonal asset flip experiment demo of a game. Early access for discounted to $179.99. Wow. English and Russian. So, at what point does a price become straight up trolling to Valve? Clearly not yet. But, like, this is clearly straight up trolling. $179.99. There's no way you accidentally type that in. You don't. The 1 is not close to the 7, and the 7 is not next to the 9, and then stammering to the 99 cents. Why does that not trigger red flags in Valve's algorithm? Yeah. But we've got so much good news that it really doesn't matter. It's really not worth it to focus on that. Gamatsu has an article here. Capcom opens the Tokyo Game Show 2019 website. I would have thought that the Tokyo Game Show had already happened for 2019. So this is another example of me not really understanding when these things happen. Tokyo Game Show will run September 12th through 15th in Chiba, Japan. So yeah, there's a misunderstanding there. I guess maybe what I'm remembering, and this would be silly, but it's very possible, is I'm just remembering the Tokyo Game Show from last year, and yeah, that would make sense. There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called Escape Architect VR. I think this is probably a low effort game. We've seen something else called Escape Architect, and it looked somewhat like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same developer of that, but apparently not. Regardless, this early access game for $9.99, which is English only, does not look interesting at all. A VR version of Escape the Room would have to be highly visually polished to take advantage of the fact that it's VR. Like, any kind of game where you're using VR is going to be an admission that you're going to have the player's eyes closer to the screen than normal. Alright, so now we just need to do warrior cards, so 8 more warrior cards, and then we'll cast a bunch of spells. We've got to get all 3 done today. Next we have a game on Steam called Grab the Mask, and then a bunch of Asian characters. This looks to me like it is a Bomberman clone, although it's more of a less wall situation. It seems kind of random looking at the gameplay here. Like, seems like you put down a bomb and theoretically you're trying to blow up the tiles. I guess the blue character puts a blue bomb that blows up the blue tiles. The red character or the brown character puts down a red bomb that turns them into brown. And so you're quickly trying to take control of the entire board, which is not really a great concept of a game. 99 cents, multiplayer only. It doesn't even have a single player element. It feels like a mobile game, but you couldn't really play something like this without a controller very well. And so it also feels simplistic enough that it might just be like a Famicom style NES game. It's simplistic concept. The grab the mask concept makes no sense, and the thumbnail is nice, but it doesn't really line up with anything either. Yep. So, in all fairness, though, if this was the bottom of the barrel that Chinese developers, and that's what I'm assuming this is a Chinese developer like develops a game can make. If this was the bottom of the barrel of what Chinese game developers made, this would be so much better. There's nothing really wrong with this game. For 99 cents, if this looked fun, if you had somebody to play it with you, I wouldn't blame you for buying this, where I might blame you quite a bit for buying a lot of other terrible Chinese games. And so it would be nice to see them all raise their level to at least the level of a decent looking NES game, and get away from things that look really, really bad and look unfinished and look, maybe they don't fall under the category of straight up trolling, but they don't look anywhere close to an acceptable level of quality. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 Gamescom 2019 RTX trailer. A lot of trailers came out during the opening night of Gamescom, which was, I think, just a few hours ago. At this point, is it reasonable for anybody to be still hyped about ray tracing? To me, that feels like it was a flash in the pan style technology that may get a second wind and some traction once the games actually come out, but I am not really in the mood to see advertisements telling me I need to buy a new ray tracing video card just because 4 games or so might have support for it. Like, it really would be only a handful of games that I'd be interested in. Next, we have a game on Steam called Nigel the Minuscule Adventures. This is a RPG Maker game that is just extremely zoomed out, and to hide the fact that it's terrible pixel animation. 99 cents, English only. This is, I guess, a great example of a Western garbage game. And I can't really say anything better about that. I'd say that the Bomberman style game was more thought out, much more an original idea, and much better animated. Let's see. Do this. And do this.
That minion already attacked.
Drink with me,
Do this. Gamma Sutra has an article, get a job, join Heart Machine as a studio manager in Culver City, California. Interesting. It would be cool to be a work as a studio manager, but frankly you would need to be a business manager of sorts. Let's see. Keeping on track, keeping us on track, working with our certified public account, processing, create and send invoices for various partners. So some of this is more accounting than probably they would really want to know, than the manager should have to work with. Working with our payroll company to make sure everybody's paid on time, keeping the studio stocked with our daily use materials and snacks. So this must be a particularly small company that you would have the manager, in a studio manager, doing all of that. Let's see.
Challenge accepted.
Help organize parties, birthdays, lunches, and field trips for the team. Like, that's really not the kind of environment I would want to run and manage, frankly. Manage team time, tracking vacation days. If you're tracking vacation days and creating calendars and things like that, then you're doing the job of like 3 or 4 people. Now, maybe there's only 5 people in your office, so it might make some sense for it to be that way, but I can't help but feel like they're trying to get somebody to do a lot of work. Helping keep track of answering and sending emails and calls with various partners, that sounds like a secretary job. Keeping us on our businesses up to function today. So a lot of this feels like a secretary job being labeled as a studio manager job, but without any of the power.
What now?
Yeah, and they want you to have 2 to 3 years of previous experience as a management role, and I guess if you're a manager at McDonald's, this might be a step up, but frankly, to me it sounds like a lot of the duties they're having you do would either clearly fall under a secretary's duties or housekeeping duties or an accountant's duties, whereas generally speaking a manager should just manage. In a weird way to describe it like that, but a manager should be just in charge of the employees and making sure that they're getting their work done on time, that they're showing up on time and leaving on time, although in the video game industry I bet they don't care if you stay late. Making sure that they're getting their hours inputted right. Yeah, that's all managerial stuff, but when it's talking to other contractors and when it's taking phone calls, those aren't main duties of what a studio manager should be, in my opinion, which may not be worth anything. So, Heart Machine, who knows how many people are there, but that might change a lot of your interpretation there. Is if there's only 5 people in the business, then it would make more sense that one person is doing 3 people's jobs because there's so little to do. But then again, I don't know if you really want to be a studio manager for a company that only has 3 or 5 employees. And if there was like 300 employees and you're having to do all of that, that's way too much work considering all the things they're asking you to do. Like, it's important to realize that if somebody is managing 100 people and they have to make sure that their employees that they're managing each are getting the right amount of hours paid to them and assigned to them to work, then you're doing the same thing 100 times, and even if it takes only 5 minutes, you're talking 500 minutes of work just per week, just to make sure people are following the right schedule. Now, of course, there's software to automate those things quite a lot, but it's still a multiplication factor depending on how many people you're managing. It's really easy to manage one person. It's twice as hard to manage 2. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Gears Pop, the free-to-play mobile Gears game, launches this Thursday out of nowhere. I think Microsoft kind of did this one right. Often I will criticize games for not having a lot of advertisement or announcements around it. I think since this one was negatively received anyways, and this is more of a side game just to remind people that Gears of War exists, having it come out as just this free-to-play mobile game might be fine. I think it's just a Clash Royale clone anyways.
What now?
So yeah, the putting it out there without spending a lot of money is maybe the right move for them, although it is a weird move in the long run, because it does admit that this that the Gears Pop will probably not succeed. I imagine all the money was made in the back end that Funko Pop paid to have the development of this game as an advertisement, more than trying to make any real money on it. And they might get a few whales out there that actually do spend a lot of money on it, since it's a free-to-play game. We are still in a very weird situation with mobile games, as far as can you make money on them, or are they just advertisements? Are they glorified commercials for real games, or are they things that can stand on their own? And Gears Pop in particular is something that doesn't look like it could stand on its own. Let's see. Do this first, and then do this.
You didn't need that, did you?
Job done.
There we go. So this game on Steam, rad. We had talked about it. It's Double Fine putting it out with a little bit of advertisement, but not a lot. A Binding of Isaac kind of roguelike with mutations being a major factor. The angle on the cameras still feels rather weird. I have this on the following list. It is out now. It came out apparently a couple hours early because of time zones. It's $19.99. So far it has like 4 reviews. It would be negative review, positive review. So it's doing about 50%, which is not great. Metacritic has given it a 75. I'll leave it on the following list, and we'll see how this happens, or how it works, or how well it sells. I imagine it's in a lot of ways just put out there because of the fact that that there's that Double Fine was bought by Microsoft, and Microsoft is just trying to get as much money back as possible if they can.
Did that hurt?
From their Double Fine acquisition. It happens a lot more in movies than anything else, but when somebody comes in new in a movie, they often cancel all the projects that are in development. I don't think that happens in video games too often, but I bet there is a level of pride and possibly stupidity that happens where games are rushed out the door instead of being given more time to develop and finish their presentation, because somebody new is in charge and they don't share that vision that the previous person did. Right, so we do this. Then we end the turn. Next we have a low effort asset flip game called Dead on Steam here. Don't know. It looks like a survival game where you're running around punching pigs and fighting zombies. Yeah. A lot of pig fighting. There's some screenshots here showing from a third-person perspective, but all the gameplay is from actually a first-person perspective. Every single screenshot here looks terrible. It's a low-effort name. It's early access, $13.99. No discount, English only. Yeah, this is definitely not going anywhere. So it's not going to the follow list. Okay, now we need to just play 3 more spells and kill some more minions, which I think I can focus on. Gamasutra has an article. Sony-owned studios may lean into a wider non-PlayStation install base in the future. PlayStation-owned game development studios like the recently acquired Insomniac Games, which is another bit of news we'll talk about, may look outside of their parent platform for some future releases. So this is an interesting concept, to say the least. It implies that there is this desire, as far as Sony Entertainment Interactive, to get away from Sony Hardware, which is a division of Sony Entertainment Interactive, or possibly this is a desire. Well, I don't know whether Sony of Japan would follow on that, because if Sony of Japan wanted to acquire more companies, they would do it under probably Sony Pictures, because we've already seen that happen. We've already seen weirdness where a different subsidiary of Sony of Japan, Sony Pictures, has acquired video game companies and used them to make video games that mostly were on the Sony PlayStation, but weren't 100% guaranteed to always be that way. Now we have Sony Interactive Entertainment, which is the now California-based company, saying we're going to acquire people. My feeling here is that they're probably acquiring people like Insomniac Games because of cronyism more than good business concepts. Both when Sony and Microsoft acquire companies, it is a form of desperation, and I don't want to. I do kind of have an anti-Sony bias, but let's call a duck here. When Microsoft acquires a video game company, it's because they've lost all their talent on their previously acquired video game companies, and Microsoft as a company really can't do enough to be successful and make the Xbox successful. They need something that feels like exclusives. When Sony does it, it's the exact same thing. They need something that feels like exclusives. So it seems extremely strange that you would have a scenario here where just out of nowhere you start to see Sony-owned studios say, oh, we might actually start releasing on other platforms. Now, it's very possible that people are taking a lot not taking this in the way that it was meant, and they're misinterpreting it. It could be what they're opening themselves up to is a negotiation that they already agreed to, where they would support the Stadia or some other streaming platform like that, of which they don't really consider competition. I also wouldn't be surprised if they started putting out releases on the Switch, which I doubt they consider competition too. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a few games out there where
The future is
where the entirety of the game is available on everything except for Microsoft platforms, which would possibly include the PC and possibly not. Could also be that PlayStation games are just coming to PC, and that would be very good for PlayStation. So there's a lot of different ways that this could work. I'm not sure that Sony Interactive Entertainment right now thinks they have any competition or anyone that they really need to compete against. I'm going to play a little Murloc Shaman, because that'll give me a chance to kill more minions, I think. So here's a quote here. Quote, "We must support the PlayStation platform. That is non-negotiable," Layden told Bloomberg. That said, "You'll see in the future some titles coming out of my collection of studios which may need to lean into a wider installed base." that's a weird way to phrase that, because that does seem to imply that the install base on the PlayStation is not big enough for what they would like. But a wider installed base might be cell phone games too. So who knows? It could be that PlayStation's going to let their studios make cell phone games, which again would not really be competition to PlayStation games. That would also be a very wide install base. So we'll just have to see if anything actually comes from this. Right now, this is a statement that may mean absolutely nothing, as so many statements do, or it could be the beginning of something very different. I'm not sure if it's good or bad. If it came to PC, though, I'd be certainly very happy. There's a lot of PlayStation exclusives that would be very well received if they came to PC. I'm just going to do this. Next, we have a Gematsu article. Dragon Star Vanya for PC launches October 9th. Let's see, do we have a trailer? By the way, I got a content ID for showing too much of a trailer, which again cannot be copyrighted. I haven't bothered to go and find it. Frankly, at these points, finding content IDs, since I'm not monetized anyways, is pointless. Once I get monetized, I think I would find a lot of these content IDs, but right now it's just kind of shooting fish in a barrel, and then the content IDs have in the past disappeared and then come back 6 months later, 12 months later, and so there's no reason to spend any time on it. So apologies if anybody saw a ad for that. As of the moment, I don't care if you use an ad blocker on YouTube or not, because they're not funding me, certainly. But it is a part of a bigger problem, and it certainly is a problem that has yet to be really addressed, of people blatantly misusing copyright law, in this case by claiming an advertisement trailer that cannot be copyrighted. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Sony Interactive Entertainment's Sean Layden suggests some first-party multiplayer titles will come to additional platforms. We just talked about that. Same article. We're going to have, unfortunately, quite a lot of that today. This. I think I'm gonna win before I kill enough minions, but that's fine. Gematsu has an article for the PS4, at least. We think it's coming to other things. Death Stranding Gamescom 2019, Mama and Deadman trailers, plus 9 minutes of gameplay. So we're starting to get to the point where we see more and more bits of Death Stranding, but frankly, I don't need to see any more trailers of Death Stranding. I know it exists. When that game comes out, if people play it and review it, that's the next bit of information I would want. Yeah, 2 more dead minions and then we're done. Next we have a game on Steam called Dino Lost, which, is this a real game or is this just kind of a empty field? It fades to black. I don't think the fade to black and showing text concept is ever a good concept for a video game trailer. I think that's something you can do for a teaser trailer for movies, and that is about it. But when you're talking interactive visual medium, particularly ones that aren't super focused around story, which a game like this really can't be, that seems unnecessary. This is discounted to $8.99, English, Portuguese, Brazil. I don't think this needs to be on the follow list. It's looks like it's kind of a mobile game being ported. Yeah, it just doesn't have enough interest. But whatever, I'll be generous. I'll put it on the follow list anyways. This is one of those days, isn't it, where I'm gonna be way too generous. Oops. Oh, a free victory and possibly a win streak is not a terrible thing. So we'll try that again. There also was a lot of announcements, I think, at Gamescom around the Stadia. So quite a few games have announced and support for the Stadia, which frankly this should have been day one. It would have definitely given it a better launch had they said, we've got these games, and these games. Game Sutra has an article, before Stadia came along, Robot, the developer, had shelved the Orcs Must Die series, which I kind of knew. It was pretty obvious they had. I believe there was an Orcs Must Die mobile game or something, or something more of a online MOBA, MMO or something, that nobody really liked or played. But now they've got a Orcs Must Die 3 has been announced as a Stadia exclusive, but that certainly is not a exclusive game that's going to that's not going to bring in a lot of players, because while Orcs Must Die 1 was fine as a tower defense trap based style of game, it's not unique enough that I have any desire to even really go back and play it again. And I probably own Orcs Must Die 1 and 2, and it's still not interesting enough to me. That's one dead minion. Microsoft themselves had a Gamescom article. Gears 5 debuts the campaign story trailer, named the best Xbox One game. So there's a trailer here if you're interested. Again, Gears 5, it's been hyped enough. I know what it is. I'm ready to play it when it comes out, and I don't need to go any further with that. Let's see. There's 2 dead minions. We might be able to burn through the news relatively quickly here. TechRaptor has titled a lot of the Gamescom articles, Gamescom ONL, that's Opening Night Live. Remothered Broken Porcelain has been announced. I believe this is the 3rd game in the Remothered series, so it's supposed to be a horror game. Video is unavailable. Game already has a Steam page though, so here we can look at it from there. Yeah, I believe the Remothered series had been kind of consistent on much better graphics for a horror game than what we had seen before. Like, this trailer looks like a good game. It actually looks decent. Apparently it's coming out summer 2020. We'll put that on the follow list. Alright. 2 damage. Rush. Okay. In the turn. Gematsu has an article. Port Royale 4 has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, due out in 2020. So Gamescom in particular seems to be like it has to come out in 2020, because then it's just way too late to announce anything that would be coming out in 2019. And that's probably true for every year. I suppose you could say it's out right now, and that might catch some people's attention, but that would have to be a major announcement. If that game Remothered Broken Porcelain said it was out right now, it probably would get a little bit more coverage, but that's kind of it as far as Gamescom announcements.
I see a dark future.
Now, with the ESA leaking so many people's information, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw no E3 or very little E3 presence, and a lot of people decided to make announcements at Gamescom instead. But it certainly is a tight competitive environment, because you have E3, and then a couple weeks later you have one of the Aniplex, Anacon, one of the major anime conventions, and I've forgotten the name of it. And any Japanese games might announce at that anime convention. There's and then there's about a month break, and then you have Gamescom, and then there's gonna be, frankly, a month break again, and then you'll have Tokyo Game Show. Also, some in between, a couple weeks after E3 is the San Diego Comic-Con, and some games will be announced there. At some point, there's probably a PAX in between all of that mess too. There's quite a lot of time here, a lot of different opportunities to announce your game somewhere else if you want to. Let's make sure we've killed enough minions there, because that would be annoying if we hadn't. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Trollskog, which looks like it's a not very visually polished top-down real-time strategy game. Yeah, it's just not very visually appealing. Early access, $11.99. Third-party EULA, English. Yep. Nothing there to interest me. And that is everything we needed to do on the Asian account, so we can now jump out to the Americas account. We'll just go in circles as usual. The Americas account did have a watch and learn. I'm trying to get back into the habit of logging in every day and re-rolling any daily quest, which I kind of fell out of the habit the last week or so of doing that. And so I logged in, and there was a watch and learn, and I had the opportunity to accomplish that watch and learn, so I did. That being said, that's just going to be more packs sitting here until the next card opening video. By the way, the card opening video, priest cards and Murloc cards, we've already done this Tavern Brawl. The card opening video that I put out was mislabeled on the live stream, and I forgot to put out the card pack opening video in its recorded format, so it came out on Sunday late around 10 p.m. So yeah, I'm really dropping the ball. I really can't say anything other than that. I totally dropped the ball there. That was stupidity on my part. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Gamescom Horror FMV Erica releases tonight. This is from Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe and Flavorworks. Let's see. It's probably a PlayStation exclusive. Let's see what this trailer is. It's harder, certainly, to do a horror in full motion video by far.
Must consider,
because then you're effectively trying to make a interactive movie that's scary, and scary movies in general are bad. So if this game ever came to PC and it actually was good, that would be quite the level of success. I think also there's a perspective shift when you're making a horror movie and you're looking into the faces of the actors who have to display and show fear, and when you're playing an interactive experience where you are the main character and thus you're looking at the things that have to instill fear in yourself. So that's definitely a different kind of experience. Draw a card, I guess. Guess that'll work more than anything else. TechCraft has an article. Ratchet & Clank developer Insomniac Games has been purchased by Sony. Ratchet & Clank developer Insomniac Games, definitely one of the companies that would most likely be acquired by Sony, because Ratchet & Clank were exclusives. Their last game they made that was hugely successful was Marvel's Spider-Man, which I think was multi-platform, but kind of focused on the PlayStation. So it makes sense. That being said, it might be the point that they're saying here. Insomniac Games was formed in 1994, so that's what, 15 years ago. They've been a developer for 24 years. It's very possible now that Insomniac Games has been acquired, you'll start to see more of that brain drain as people leave the company.
I just want some peace and quiet.
Or maybe they'll all stay and maybe they'll get more funding. And continue making good games. The scariest thing, I suppose, in the acquisition of Insomniac Games is that maybe the Ratchet & Clank series games, which I think did go to PC, would stop going to PC, or that the next Spider-Man game would be a PlayStation exclusive, which that would certainly irritate people. This is also almost certainly a example of them throwing money around quite a bit, because you don't acquire a company that just had a major success cheaply.
Right away.
And so this might be a case where they paid a large amount of money to acquire Insomniac Games, and then Insomniac Games a few years down the line either gets sold or buys itself its own freedom for considerably less money, and in the meantime they develop very little as far as quality games for Sony exclusively. Let's see. This and this and this.
Is someone injured? Right away.
I'm trying to play priest cards. I have to remind myself what I'm doing. Gamasutra has an article. Mojang partners with NVIDIA to bring real-time ray tracing to Minecraft. Interesting, certainly, but it's probably not gonna be something that you could do easily. I really doubt that Minecraft would significantly be improved with ray tracing, and that it would have stability to do that. RetroArch, by the way, has a quick look of version 1.78, which, if you're interested, you can look at that video. They're pushing their Twitter presence and their social presence and their online presence to be as high as possible to get more eyes in front of their project.
Right away.
They also tweeted out the Twitter account of Final Burn Neo, the split off group from Final Burn Alpha, which there were some quick looks at the that came out of the Capcom arcade stick device, and seemed like there was a decent number of people that were okay with it, which is a little surprising.
Right away. Right away.
I don't know if I'm gonna get to play any more cards. Well, if he can, he's won, actually.
Well played.
I should have killed these minions. Man, I must be getting just worse and worse about looking at the elements that are important. That's gotta be the case. Yeah. Let's try that again. Gamer Sutra has an article. Xbox Game Studios published Ori and the Blind Forest is headed to the Switch, which, okay. Like, there'd be a good reason to play it again. One question is that the definitive edition or is that the original edition? It's the definitive edition, okay, yeah. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to play the definitive edition. Gamatsu has an article. Iron Harvest launches September 1st, 2020. I have no idea what Iron Harvest is. Is this some kind of real-time strategy game?
Job's done.
With the robots? Is this a continuation of that other game? You have a Steam page. I guess we can do that.
Must consider.
It looks a lot like Command & Conquer. Like Command & Conquer Red Alert. I'll put it on the following list. I'm putting more and more things on the following list though before the game even comes out. They're like walking tanks in it, which feels a lot like Command & Conquer Red Alert, which frankly, if you took the elements of Command & Conquer Red Alert and sped up the gameplay a little bit and sped up the made it a little bit more modern, that's probably a good seller, a good concept to do. Speaking of probable good concepts, I watched the 3rd season of Stranger Things, which is to say I had it playing on my TV and wasn't paying much attention to it. There is just some weirdness, certainly, of not having the interest to watch something and then trying to watch it anyways. This is probably where I'd be a bad TV or movie critic, is if I was just assigned things I had to watch instead of just watching what I felt like when I felt like watching things. So the story for Stranger Things season 3 is fine. It's kind of just a repeat of the first season in the same way that the second season was kind of just a repeat of the first season. I don't think we're gonna see a season 4 or anything like that. It was cool, but it was definitely not something I was paying attention to. I'm just gonna play cards because I need to play cards. So there's a video game kind of based on that, and I guess I'd be fine with playing the game now. Like, I think there were some spoilers in the game that you probably would want to watch the series, but I almost certainly 6 months to a year from now will want to watch season 3 again and give it a second chance. Perhaps it's really a case where you'd be better off watching it all together, where I didn't really feel like there was a need to break up to break up season 2 and season 1. Like, season 1 felt perfectly fine if that was going to be the end of the story, whereas season 2 is kind of not standalone if you haven't seen season 1. And if you had just marathoned through season 1 to season 2, I think you would have been fine. So maybe you just need to marathon the entire series. They did kind of leave the ending open so that there might be a season 4. I think in general too, we're starting to see, I've heard Netflix in particular really only wants to do 3 seasons of anything and then stop funding things. But I think that might be the beginning of how syndication will just be. It used to be that you had to have 100 episodes, which is roughly 5 seasons, depending on the number of episodes you make in a season. But more and more, it is like 3 seasons is good enough to get you a decent DVD streaming package. The awful, super pretentious TV series Legion went 3 seasons, and there was definitely some problems with that show. In particular, one major complaint I can make about Legion is that it just didn't respect its characters. At the end of the series, they'd totally forgotten one character in total, and they had killed off at least a couple other characters in unsatisfactory ways. So the whole thing really not a great experience. And I had the entire series on my DVR and deleted everything except for like the episode at the end of season 2, which I only keep because it has like an interesting animation scene at the beginning, and that's it. And musical backgrounds, they're singing a song. But the animation that they were doing, they didn't do any of that as far as the psychic fights that were happening. They totally replaced that style in season 3, so they're not even consistent there. And they went away with it that I wouldn't have gone with it. The idea of Legion in the Marvel comic books is that he's a crazy, super powerful mutant that has multiple personalities. The thing I had always assumed that we were going to find out is that every character in the show was actually a multiple personality in his head, and he wasn't actually dealing with any other people at all. That this was all basically an internal conflict. That's really not what happened at all. If you want to see just how pretentious Legion is, they literally spent 6 minutes, or over 6 minutes, singing an entire song from Pink Floyd's The Wall, like word for word, not really doing anything else. And if you think you're good enough in your TV show to sing Pink Floyd's The Wall and compare yourself to one of the best known and best liked musicals, I guess would be the case, soundtracks ever, you're joking yourself. You're totally joking yourself. So yeah, Legion was just terrible. It had been terrible since day one, though. It really was a weekly self-flagellation in which I was just torturing myself, saying how terrible this could get. But it is also a great example of like FXX content and cable level content not being good enough for my standards. Anyways, I have no idea why I'm talking about TV when we've got video games to talk about. Gamasutra has an article. It's the same article. Sony announces it's buying Spider-Man's developer Insomniac Games. Yeah. Gematsu has the same article. Interactive thriller Erica for PS4 is now available. This one coming out right now probably was a smart release because it does probably put it in the best position where it gets a lot of hype and very little competition.
I wonder what this does.
TechRaptor has a Gamescom article, Disintegration showcased by V1 Interactive. What is Disintegration? Sci-fi first-person shooter without... I haven't heard anything about Disintegration. Well, this is an interesting looking trailer. It doesn't say anything here. Okay. Are you going through large areas in this mech, or are you going through pretty simplistic areas, small areas? So, Disintegration might be a new style mech fighter game from the West that might have some attraction. TechRaptor has an article, Humankind announced by Amplitude Studios. What is Humankind? We got a trailer here. This looks like full motion video, so the trailer is probably hiding what the actual game looks like. Unless this is actually animated. Some of this looks animated, but not all of it. Let's see. The premise of Humankind is similar to Sid Meier's Civilization in that you start from a Neolithic era and lead your people into the modern era. So, it's probably kind of boring, if I was to guess.
I don't have enough mana.
Should have played the card instead of healing. Alright, well, Humankind with its fancy trailer is probably not something that would interest me. Gamasutra has an obituary. The Panzer Dragoon artist and designer Takashi Iwata has passed away. It feels like someone else who worked on Panzer Dragoon died relatively recent. Let's see. He also worked on Yakuza 0, Sega Rally 2 Championship, and Fista North Star Lost Paradise. How old was he? He doesn't look particularly old. No indication here. But it seems like he was more in his 40s than anything. Although, you know, working yourself to death in the Japanese video game industry is not unheard of, if that's the potential reason why he passed away. I don't know. And drinking yourself to death in Japan's not unheard of either. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article, same article, Sony Interactive Entertainment acquires Insomniac. It is big news. It'll just be kind of a matter of what's the next game that they announce, when it's coming out. The thing you could really take from this is if Sony had plans this year to acquire Insomniac Games, why didn't they announce that right after the Microsoft E3 presentation? At the E3 Play PlayStation live stream that they had, that would have been much bigger news, much more important news than whatever they did say, which I think was very little, because I can't remember any of it. But okay, it at least gives them some coverage during the Gamescom press window. Otherwise, they really wouldn't have a lot of news coverage. Gamatsu has the same article, Remothered Broken Porcelain launches summer 2020. Yeah, I guess there really is a need to cover more of these horror games. And have a second Halloween sometime in February. I've got way too many horror games. Yeah, that. Can't play that. In the chain. Gamatsu has an article for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One. DCL, the game, has been announced for consoles and PC. The official video game of the Drone Championship Leagues, which I've never heard of the Drone Championships Leagues. It's coming from publisher THQ Nordic and Climax Studios.
What to
it has
do?
Has a decent publisher, I suppose, and that's about all you can say. I have been looking on Steam for a game like this, where you can fly around a drone in the safety of a PC environment. The question is, will it be VR only, and is the Drone Championship League going to be anything of interest? But yeah, I'll put this on the follow list, and I would we'll see how this works. First person drone racing. I would like the ability to go to third person perspective and try that out too. Seems like there is no VR support here though. And in first person, at some points you're not really flying a drone anymore, than you're just flying yourself. And I think that there's a difference there. Here's a slight section where you can see it in third person. But yeah, I'll put that on the follow list. That might be the drone game that I've been looking for quite a while. Are we still 6 priest cards and a bunch of murlocs? Let's get the 6 priest cards done, and then murlocs I think might just, I'll play that off screen if I can get through all the news, or we'll skip to the European account and come back. Gamatsu has an article, Sega and Amplitude Studios announces the historical turn-based strategy game Humankind for PC.
Your soul shall be mine.
Okay, yeah, this is that weird trailer, but when you look at the actual screenshot of the game in this article, you can see it looks rather different. I'm not immediately dismissing it though, because like, if you told me that Humankind is the most modern, best version of Civ, Sid Meier's Civilizations, and you don't need to play any of Sid Meier's Civilizations anymore, I'd be super happy, because there's a lot of those Civilization games out there, and I don't really want to have to go through playing a lot of those games when they're so similar and so grindy.
What do you want?
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Predator Hunting Grounds has a gameplay trailer. And the gameplay trailer is down. It's due out for the PS4 in 2020. I am a little iffy on a Predator game because it is just another one of those asynchronous, well, for lack of a better term, asynchronous gameplay elements that that have not really worked ever. I would be much happier if there was a Predator game that was a first-person, not first-person, but single-player action adventure shooter game with a storyline, and you're going through levels in the same way that the Alien games try to act. TechCrafter has an article. Kerbal Space Program 2 is announced. This will be very interesting because the accusation was that when Kerbal Space Program 2, Kerbal Space Program's company was bought. Squid, I believe, was the name of their company. That they had mostly fired all of the programmers, so there was no talent to continuously improve on Kerbal Space Program 1, which still needed a lot of work. And the idea of making a 2 is certainly greedy, and they've been certainly greedy in the past with elements that extra DLC and raising the prices and such, while not really delivering a finished game. What's catching my eye here is it says Private Division and Star Theory Games have announced a sequel. I don't think either one of those companies worked on Kerbal Space Program. Yeah, it was released under Squad in April 2015, so it's been 4 years. It makes sense to have a sequel. It's been updated to 1.7.3, but I'm guessing you would have to rebuy version 2.0, which is what that basically implies. I personally do not think I would have any interest in trying to go back to Kerbal Space Program and playing it, unless it was just remade from the ground up and way better and way easier. Graphics look better, certainly, in this trailer, but that may just be the trailer and nothing else. Yeah, I would really have to see a major review of Kerbal Space Program 2 before I considered buying Kerbal Space Program 1. Buying Kerbal Space Program 2 and playing it.
We shall end this disturbance.
Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Lone Path, which looks like it's a point-and-click adventure. I kind of like this animation style. It looks like kind of a Cyanide and Happiness, very curvy style, but seems to be drawn with a level of understanding shading and consistency. So this isn't just a bad artist who drew a circle face or a round face. It feels like they really knew what they were doing. I'm gonna put this on the follow list because I'm a sucker for point-and-click adventures. It's $7.99, English only. Would be nice if it had full audio. This may not really be a point-and-click adventure at all, but I'll wait until some reviews come in and that'll give me more of an idea. I need to play these cards and didn't. Gamatsu has an article. Little Nightmares 2 has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. I'm not sure it's due out in 2020. I'm not sure if Little Nightmares 1 came out on the PC or if it came out on the PC a long time after the original game came out. So there was a disconnect there. I think Little Nightmares in general is a pretty simplistic puzzle game, a platforming game. I think it wasn't actually that good or well received, if I'm recalling correctly. So I'm not sure if it really justifies having a sequel anyways. Just play cards. That's all I need to do. Just play cards. I seriously doubt anybody was chomping at the bit to play Little Nightmares 2, though. It came and went with very little fanfare. And I can see the beginning of the end, so we're in a kind of good position. I may just have a lot of Hearthstone to play off screen later today, later this evening. I'm getting to the point, it's so late now that even playing off screen may put me well into midnight or 1. But I guess I could also play tomorrow, if that's what it comes down to. As long as I don't have 3 daily quests to do, I could come back and play these Murlocs tomorrow and get it rebalanced. Let's go over to the European account this time. Now. And while that's loading, TechRaptor has an article, Comanche revealed by THQ Nordic. Comanche sounds like an old school helicopter clone. How's it actually going to play for this 1-minute trailer, of which there's 10 seconds of logos? Objective-based multiplayer combat. Choose your Comanche, ride into dogfights. There might be something here, like this kind of is a instance where you might be able to make a flying around fighting game that is more modern than the last flying around fighting game. And they've got drones in this trailer, so you can fight with drones too. So there might be a game there. My fear, however, because this is THQ Nordic, and THQ Nordic seems to be really not interested in making good games, just interested in making a bunch of games, that my fear is that Comanche probably won't be that good. So we need to play Death Rattle cards, we need to win 2 games, and we need to destroy 25 minions. We've got this Tavern Brawl done 3 times over because we had that daily quest to win 3 Tavern Brawls. So I think if we were to play Mech Hunter, there might probably not be so many Death Rattle cards, but let's play it anyways. Gamatsu has the same article, Kerbal Space Program 2 announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Rexa versus Valera.
There's developer diary video they have. That interests you.
Begin.
Yeah, I don't even know if like Scott Manley would really bother to go back to playing Kerbal Space Program. It's been so long, and there's other things that have come out and sort of supplanted that. Gamatsu has an article, Need for Speed Heat has a Gamescom trailer. So, a new Need for Speed game. This game I believe was already announced. So this is just a trailer showing off the fancy looking cars, which at this level, all the cars look fancy enough to the point where I can't really say anything new about them, because either you run into a racing car game that looks terrible like a mobile game, or you run into a car game that looks like it's a modern car game and looks as good as any of the others. Gamatsu has the same article, Comanche announced for PC. Apparently not a sequel to Copter or Helicopter from the old DOS days. Although it would be kind of silly if it was the sequel. Gamatsu has an article, Gears 5 campaign story trailer. Is this the same trailer as we've seen before? I don't think it is. I'm running the risk of this also getting content ID'd today's stream, but whatever. Interesting parasailing. I am not sure where the Gears series sits as far as PC gaming goes. It's gonna be weird. Certainly Gears has always been kind of a competitor to Halo, and so we are in this situation where Gears 5 is coming out sort of around the same time that the sort of around the same time that the Halo Master Chief Collection is coming to PC, And I think most people would be better suited to cover, most YouTubers would be better suited to cover the Halo story. I don't know the Halo story, but I kind of would like to play the Gears story too. It'd be nice if they were spread out by a couple of years, but then that's not going to happen, clearly. Oh, I may get victories here, but I don't think I'm playing too many Death Rattle cards. Gamma Sutra has an article, Cyberpunk 2077 exclusive Orcs Must Die 3 and many more now are headed to Stadia. So is there a full list here?
I give up.
Windjammers 2, Destroy All Humans, Mortal Kombat 11, Doom Eternal, Elder Scrolls Online, and several others coming to Stadia. I have to assume that's because it's just really, really easy to go to Stadia, and Stadia paid a decent, Google paid a decent amount of money to get them to support Stadia, or experiment with Stadia, which really, all these games are kind of experiments for the companies. TechRaptor has a similar article, Stadia games announced, including Cyberpunk 2077. Yep, here's same games. Super Hot, that was the one that wasn't mentioned, and Watchdog Legions was one that wasn't mentioned.
Let the hunt begin.
You're probably getting a decent amount of the lineup for 2020 as far as games coming out, but I'm still not sure that's enough to get Stadia to succeed. I would say they also at some point need to announce we've got 100 plus old games that are AAA games running perfectly fine. We've got 1,000 plus old games running. That the idea or the ability to bring in some of the already made things would build your library a lot better. That's one of the things the Epic Store fails at, really, is that they're just bringing in new games and not really trying to bring in any of the old ones. Every month, if I was launching the Epic Store, I would have launched it in a much more finished, polished package, first of all, but every month there would have been, we've got at least 12 new games coming from, 12 old games coming to our storefront. With like, no exclusivity deal needed at all. Just bring out those developers and say, call those developers and say, hey, do you want to list your game here? You'll get a better deal. That's kind of all you have to do. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Everspace 2 announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Rockfish Games apparently made Everspace 2. I don't really recall a game called Everspace 1. Now this might just be because this is a space flying around game and I have no interest in those types of games. In all fairness, looking at this trailer, if all of space kind of looked like this, where you're flying around large exploded locations, or you're flying around cities, or you're flying around space sections, if there's just more to see than blackness and the twinkle of a star, that catches my attention a lot more than what most flying around space games look like. This actually looks rather interesting to me. I'm gonna see what we can do here. Everspace 2, follow. Rockfish Games, Everspace 1. Let's see. How does Everspace 1 line up?
Quickly.
I'm gonna put this on the wish list. Yeah, it seems like it's mostly positive. I found a flying around space game I'm actually willing to play, and that's a rarity in itself. Of course, playing the second game, the sequel, before the original would be weird. Gamatsu has an article, Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle is coming to Stadia. Noticed that this Japanese game was not on the list of all the other games that were more Western games. We are rather late into the hype cycle as far as Attack on Titan though, or Attack on Titan 2 in particular. So I don't know if that brings in a lot of people. I would say this Gamatsu article, Super Hot, is coming to the Stadia, would bring in more people than Attack on Titan 2. There definitely are some Japanese games that would do rather well on the Stadia, particularly the long-running JRPG games, because if you're going to try and play all of that, you're probably going to have to lock yourself in for 3 or 4 months of Stadia subscription services. And something big like a Metal Gear Solid 5 that takes a lot of space, hard drive space, could do well there. Or something long like Final Fantasy 15 could do really well there. So there definitely is some games that would work a lot better on the Stadia than others. Whereas if you were playing something like Pac-Man that you could easily download and have it run smoother and better instantaneously, I don't see where a small game like Pac-Man makes sense on something like Stadia. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Watch Dogs Legion, Welcome to the Resistance trailer, due out March 6, 2020 for the PC, PS4, Stadia, and Xbox One. They had to make a new logo. I don't really need to see the trailer though. Watch Dogs Legions is a weird game for me because I would have to think about whether I want to really deal with playing Watch Dogs 1 or Watch Dogs 2, or can you just jump into 3 and it doesn't really matter, or do you need to play any of the Watch Dogs series really? Moving on, Gamatsu has Destroy All Humans remake, adds a Stadia version. And this probably is the same trailer as we... No, it's a slightly different video, but I don't have time to look at all these videos. Gamatsu has an article here. Windjammers 2 adds a Stadia version, but also is delayed to early 2020. And introduced 2 characters. Windjammers as a series in particular I think is way overhyped by mainstream video game journalists, particularly Giant Bomb. They talked about Windjammers for like a full year because they were having fun playing it between their friends. I don't know if that particularly means it's as great a game as people talk about it. As it's basically just Pong with special attacks. So, yeah. I wouldn't mind owning Windjammers 1 and playing and owning Windjammers 2. I think it has a single player experience and isn't multiplayer only, but I probably would only do a 30-minute spotlight on one of those games, or both of those games, 2 30-minute spotlights. I wouldn't play it very long. It is kind of the example of a game that once you've played it once, you've seen all it has to offer. You've played against the different characters, I suppose. And if there is a single player experience, one would hope that would be part of the concept. But yeah, who knows? I'd have to do more research. TechRaptor has Stadia Connect Orcs Must Die 3 announced as a Stadia exclusive. It's probably worth it to see what Orcs Must Die 3 looks like. Now, if this developer, Robot Entertainment, was that the name of it? Yeah. Has not been working on Orcs Must Die 3 because it's been shelved, then my question is, what have they been working on, if anything? This trailer definitely looks more polished, and it looks like it has more orcs. But I kind of would like to see it change from a tower defense game into more of a just hack and slash Diablo style game, or adventure style game. I don't think I really need to play that tower defense style gameplay anymore. I'm taking this for the death rattle and playing this. And hit that. And that. And the turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Incident Commander. I'm not sure if this is a real game or if this is a low effort asset flip. It seems like what you're doing is you're kind of running a sim city where you're controlling the firemen or being the person in charge of dispatching the fire and maybe the police. There might be a game here. It does have like a Roblox mayor character, which is a little scary, but there can actually be something here, so I'm going to put this on the fall list. I want $19.99. It says it has English full audio, third party EULA. I bet by the time this has 20 reviews, I'll probably see that it's not very good or well thought out, but I want to give it a chance at least.
What is my purpose?
Next we have Gamatsu has an article, Darksiders Genesis Gamescom 2019 trailer. Do we really need another trailer for Darksiders Genesis? I guess we do. Still a zoomed out, like, weird angled camera, which is mostly a hack and slash with a little bit of platforming. I really don't think that Darksiders Genesis actually looks too bad as a game. It just definitely doesn't feel like it is a game that interests me as somebody who wants to see Darksiders 4 and just wants to see the story wrap up, and I'm effectively, to use a poker term, hot committed to the Darksiders series since I played 1 and 2, and I want to play 3 even though it's not that great, and even 2 wasn't that great, so I'm in a weird position with the Darksiders series, but I'd like to see 4. I'd like to see the story end, and then once the story ends, maybe there's some kind of remastered reboot version of the game that they could redo and try it again. I don't know at that point though. It'd probably be better just to finish the Darksiders series and then take a spiritual successor and redo the whole series and just stick with Legend of Zelda style gameplay for the entire new series, that was the one that worked. The others really didn't. Gamatsu has an article, Doom Eternal Doom Hunter trailer. I think we saw something similar. Another Doom Eternal trailer. I don't know what to really say there. Doom Eternal is probably going to be as good as Doom 2016 was, which it was good but not great. I'm hoping it's better, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't much better. Tech Raptor has an article here, Play NYC 2019 Recap, the Indie Spirit. This, I believe, is a list of games that they were impressed by from Play NYC. Tech Raptor was impressed by. Do they list any of these games, or are any of these games actual video games? Because I'm seeing a lot of things that are a lot of tabletop games. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything digital here, so that falls out of the category of video games, as far as I'm interested. Let's see. 2 more death rattles and then destroy a bunch of minions. I didn't realize I was supposed to be destroying a bunch of minions. TechRaptor has an article, Gears 5 Horde mode revamps with Ultimates, cross-platform, and Halo Reach. That makes sense. No sense. Horde mode returns with Gears 5's Horde mode, being a brand new trailer showing off some new tricks and features in the classic Gears of War mode. Okay. Other new features include power taps, energy geysers to power up the map. Does this have to do with Halo Reach? There's a Steam page for Gears of War 5, okay. Says all these changes, well, this paragraph, all of these changes, I skipped over what the changes were, are designed to entice new players into playing Gears 5, along with making vast improvements for veterans of the series. The biggest addition, however, for pre-ordering the Ultimate Edition would not only be availability, it's available 4 days earlier, but the addition of 2 characters from Halo Reach, Emily and Kate. Interesting. So characters from Halo Reach, which I don't know if anybody really cares too much about Halo Reach, are skinned into Gears 5 because Microsoft owns both of them now. Well, I suppose I am now just kind of following all the big games that are coming out, so I'll put this on the follow list. I'm not sure it's really worth an extra $20 though to get 2 skins. But maybe there's some more DLC content that you can get. What's the Ultimate Edition DLC content include? Some boosts, the whole Halo Reach character packs. So these are the 2 Halo Reach characters, it seems. And so they're not even that interesting visually to look at. So take that, I guess, with a grain of salt. And I guess you could probably get that stuff later if you don't buy the Ultimate Edition. Frankly, you probably wouldn't be in a terrible position to wait till Definitive Edition as far as the Halo games, or not the Halo games, but the Gears 5 series. Now, I'm looking at Xbox Game Studios. It doesn't seem like there is a Gears a Gears 4 or anything like that on Steam. So yeah, I don't know how you convince people. Yeah, I don't know how you convince people that to play Gears 5 on PC when you can't own the others. Surprisingly, I don't even own Orcs Must Die on my Steam account. Yeah, come to think of it, I did play that on the Xbox 360. So as they're announcing Orcs Must Die 3 for Stadia, I would have to kind of question whether I really want to spend this game that's overwhelmingly positive from 2011. It's not a bad game by any means, but it's not something that I'm super interested in.
I wonder what this does.
We had another game come out on Steam called Sandwich Sudoku. This is a Sudoku game. It doesn't look bad. Let's see what the price is. As like a single screen Unity puzzle game, this looks as good as some of the other Sudokus. $4.99. Yeah, I'll put it on the follow list. Now, this really is a case of if I'm ever going to buy a Sudoku game for Steam, it's going to be one and only one Sudoku game. I'm not going to buy a bunch of them. So I would buy the best one or the most interesting looking one. Maybe if they did something really weird with Sudoku, I'd maybe buy a second one. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Metro Exodus Expansion 1, the 2 kernels? Is that colonials or kernels? Launches August 19th. I don't know if anybody cares about Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus in particular, being a Epic Store exclusive on PC, is feeling the wrath of people not buying it, in my mind. Like, it is the first example of people boycotting the Epic Store, and that exclusivity potentially hurting in the later part when they try to sell DLC or get any kind of sales later. I suppose the 6-month exclusivity period on Metro Exodus isn't even over yet. Otherwise, it would have gotten mentioned. But maybe it didn't because nobody even cared at that point. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article, Ghost Recon Breakpoint Player vs. Player Ghost War trailer and gameplay preview. Looks like Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a 4v4 with an ever-shrinking map, kind of like a Battle Royale, except for only 4 players. It's coming out October 4th. The beta is planned from September 5th to the 8th. I don't think this would be a Ghost Recon game for me, if there is a Ghost Recon game for me. Visually it looks fine, but what does it offer that is different than Fortnite or PUBG, which seems like those are offering a lot more. That's rather. And
Whoops.
And yeah, we have about 20, maybe 30 more games, 30 more articles to talk about,
Of course,
and we'll be done.
Right way.
Gamatsu has an article, Boundary adds a PC version and it's delayed to Q1 2020. Take note, we're having a lot of games that is like, oh, we're on this new platform, but we're also delayed. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of games out there that said, well, let's just claim that we're going to Stadia because we have to announce a delay, and that'll soften the blow of a delay announcement. Then we'll just cancel the Stadia version, or we'll half but the Stadia version. Boundary looks like it's a first-person shooter in space, which I'm not sure I'm particularly interested in that. Seems like you're limiting yourself. It's for PS4 and PC. Yeah, I don't really know why you would want to limit yourself down to just a first-person shooter in space. There we go. Let's see, we have a game on Steam here called Unknown Castle. This looks like this is probably a low-effort platforming game. It doesn't look visually appealing. It's just way too dark, way too simplistic in its tile set and art style. Dark screenshots. Or at least dim screenshot. And some just kind of pixel art scrolls. $5.39 discounted. English, Spain, Spanish, and French. 11 achievements. You're playing as Pac-Man Ghost apparently. Yeah, nothing there that interests me. Play some more Death Rattle cards.
This one turned
Next we have a game on Steam called Hobbs, which is apparently a card game. Alright. It has that kind of MS Paint level graphics on it that I don't find particularly polished enough for me. Is there something in this card game that would interest me? I don't think so. It looks kind of... It's a card-based character placement game. It's rated very positively with quite a few reviews. Early access, free, English and Turkish. I'm gonna put this on the fall list despite my best interest because it's just like really highly reviewed, and I don't know how you would pay for so many reviews to be positive, unless this is straight up the Turkish government paying for reviews, which I would not be surprised if that is the case. Darn it. That's not what I meant to do at all. Alright, well, this is gonna die. So is there anything that needs to happen here?
Our tombs.
Nope, I'm just gonna die. This will activate, do 1 damage to everything. This will activate,
Run! I will hold them off.
Unfortunately, timing seems to be different for different cards. We have Age of Empires Definitive Edition coming out on Steam. Apparently it's mixed reviews right now, so I'm going to have to do some research on that. I don't see a reason why Age of Empires Definitive Edition shouldn't be well received, other than they did a terrible job to polish it up. They also have Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition available for pre-purchase. This is again Microsoft putting out these games, so you would have hoped that Microsoft would have done a good job with it, but that doesn't always turn out to be the truth. So that Death Rattle card, just being real careful to use all the Death Rattle cards up. Gamatsu has the article about Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition launches November 14th, 4K remaster of the 1999 real-time strategy sequel. I'm not even sure I'd really want to play Age of Empires over like Command and Conquer, although that's probably not a fair comparison. It'd probably be closer to a closer comparison to Sid Meier's Civilization. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has some real news instead of just advertisements. Halo Infinite and Halo 5 Guardians creative director has left 343 Industry. So, Tim Longo, which, let's face it, Halo 5 Guardians and Halo Infinite weren't kind of the best Halo games. So He's left left the company as part of a leadership reshuffle. Although a leadership reshuffle does not end with somebody being completely missing from the company, unless there's more to it than that. He was with 343 for over 6 years. Previous to that, he oversaw the Tomb Raider reboot as the franchise director, which, frankly, that probably explains why Tomb Raider 2 and Tomb Raider 3 suffered a little bit, is because they lost their franchise director. Not that I don't even know if I would say the Tomb Raider reboot did a great job. Anyways, I would argue the Tomb Raider reboot's problems are more in its gameplay than the concept, but some of the concepts are kind of dumb. So, will this really affect the new Halo game? Probably not. Is the new Halo game going to be good? We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article for the PS4 and PC. Groundhog Day, Like Father, Like Son, launches September 17th. Now, I've heard people talk about this game, but I really didn't know what it was going to look like or how it was going to play. Apparently, it's a canonical, or at least partially canonical, sequel to the Groundhog Day movie for PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. You really live the day over and over again. Making it a VR game seems ridiculous, and how much of this gameplay is actually going to be fun is in part going to be questionable. It seems like mostly what you're doing here is a lot of QuickTime event style of actions, instead of doing any kind of story like interactions, which would be, I guess, the more interesting part of Groundhog Day, is that he had to find love and save the day. Just play. So I would think more of a point-and-click adventure story based around Groundhog Day, or just a story-based linear experience based around Groundhog Day would be fine. But making it VR, the way it looks when it's animated looks pretty cheap. This really feels like they're just trying to make an advertisement for a very old movie. Which it very well may just be a copyright ploy here, to copyright something that says Groundhog Day, to claim they still own Groundhog Day and they haven't abandoned it. Let's see, moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Antipole DX lets you get flip turned upside down. This looks like one of those platformer retro looking games that plays around with gravity. Antipole. The fact that this is zoomed in a little bit more actually makes this look kind of interesting to me. I've seen a lot of games like this that look like they're just frustration games where it's 1001 spikes or Super Meat Boy style gameplay, but there might be something here I could actually play. On the other hand, this might turn into a scenario where you are just struggling against a lot of spikes. There is a ton of spikes. And at some point, I need to question the idea of why are there so many spikes in these facilities. It's not like spikes are an effective way. I need one more victory, so we'll just play Paladin and see if we can get a victory rather quickly. spikes really aren't an effective way to protect a facility. You know, it's a great way to hurt your own facility workers. So it's very unrealistic. Moving on, TechRaptor, the 6 coolest PC games we saw at Play NYC 2019. This is the article I was looking for. There's one called Heave Ho, that looks like it might be a box pushing puzzle game. Damaged in Transit. This looks like an asset flip. This looks pretty bad. Pure Birth of a Goddess has a cute art style. Like, this does not look like a cute art style to me. This looks like a low effort anime art style. Spywatch Lex apparently is some kind of language game, which that's slightly interesting. And Way of Rhea looks interesting in the screenshot, but I don't know what this really is, if it's just a point and click adventure or what. Totem is another game. So these games might be good if they ever came out to Steam and got any like mainstream attention, but I also wouldn't be surprised if I saw all of these games come out just randomly on Steam. I wouldn't be surprised if I just, in my mind, it wrote them all off as terrible, low-effort games or uninteresting games.
It's time for a little
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Blair Witch Insanity Story trailer. So, another trailer for the Blair Witch game. I think there's a chance that the Blair Witch game here might be good. Like, because it might have something like Amnesia did, while also being funded well enough to make a much better looking game, since it's coming from Lionsgate Games. So it could either be an advertisement for a new Blair Witch game, or it could be a instance where the where it actually gets enough funding to shine on its own. So I kind of need to wait till I hear some gameplay reviews. Next, TechRaptor has an article, Skellboy Nintendo Switch release date set for December 2019. What is Skellboy, though? Is there any kind of trailer? No. It looks like it's kind of a Paper Mario game in art style, so I wonder if it's supposed to be like a Paper Mario RPG game. That's about all I can figure as I'm skimming the article here. It's like maybe it's a Paper Mario RPG game. This. And
converting stored energy. Access denied.
I should have played this first.
I must move quickly.
Let's go!
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Activision Blizzard names David Messenger, which never a better name for somebody as the new chief marketing officer than David Messenger. Doesn't mean he's good at his job, he just sounds like he should be. I don't know, though, on Activision Blizzard's case, whether this is an instance of them turning things around and saving themselves, or if this is just an example of them getting deeper and deeper in the mud as far as Activision Blizzard trying to be a company that actually makes games and makes money, versus what I'd heard Activision Blizzard has turned into, which is just a bunch of money men running the show and not caring about actually making a good product. Which is the argument that I've heard made for a lot of companies, is once the money guy gets in charge, the company is doomed.
Access denied.
His previous role, David Messenger, was the CPO, which is the Certified Public Accountant? No, I don't know what CPO is. Chief Production Officer, maybe? Yeah, I guess Chief Production Officer. That has now been replaced by Claudine Naughton.
I will crush you.
It also means that his new position will have him leaving his duties as co-head of the marketing over at Creative Artists Agency to oversee global marketing efforts for Activision Blizzard as a whole, including properties like Activision Blizzard and King. So, yeah, that doesn't really feel or sound like it's a major shift in the way things are going to be run at Activision Blizzard. And frankly, it's very possibly too little too late for Activision Blizzard anyways. I don't know if they can bring people back to Hearthstone and Overwatch, and Heroes of the Storm is dead, and Diablo is not going to get any bigger. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Best Friends Forever combines dating sim and dog management. So you're sorta dating the dog. I hope you're not really dating the dogs. If you're not really dating the dogs, then that would be weird, and I really wouldn't want to play something like that. Although I might be convinced too, if it really is just extremely oddly comical. I'm noticing here a quote. The first sentence in this quote: every person on the core team belongs to the LGBTQ+ community. So being inclusive in BFS design was paramount. What kind of hiring procedure did you have that every single person in your job is part of a minority class? The phrase reverse discrimination is not used a lot in the West, but it sounds like you implemented that, unless you're expanding it to include allies and you just are saying everybody who happens to be straight and not LGBTQ or plus was an ally, which that would, you probably should say that out loud. I don't think I'd want to do business with a company that has hiring practices like that, frankly, because what you eventually get is the concept of a bunch of blue hair SJW feminists type people who are running the company and running the company like insane people wouldn't run the company. And at the very least, to be more kind, they're not being inclusive to the perspective of the majority of people, the people who aren't LGBTQ+. And at least in the old days, there was always these accusations of LGBTQ people being deviant, to say the least. So if this truly is something that could be classified as a bestiality simulator, which is often a insult thrown to a lot of personas and such, then you're really not helping your support by much. So I'm slightly interested in this game, but I'm also scared of what the implications are for this game, because I don't know if you're going to be dating. I don't know if you're playing as a dog and the dog is dating other dogs, which would be weird too. Seems like you're going in a weird way. On the face of it, though, Best Friends Forever sounds like an interesting idea. It sounds like Nintendo Cats and Dogs, which would be great if that was on PC. But I've been scared off by that first sentence in their statement. I didn't even read the rest of the statement. We need to ensure that everyone is able to play the game however they want. We're also a tiny team, which meant that every developer has its creative input and advice from varied NPCs. They've really become treasured characters, and we can't wait to see how the players respond to them. So I'll be very interested to see some reviews for this. And I think Hearthstone has crashed. So I don't know if the stream has crashed or what. Let's just go through the news since I can't really do anything here. Let's see, what can we do here? Start here, close window. This. Free up storage space. Launch Hearthstone again. Meanwhile, Gamatsu has Sword Art Online, Alice Asian, Gamescom gameplay, and screenshots. We are starting to see the end of the Sword Art Online phase fad too, so like, I don't expect that we'll see too many Sword Art Online games going forward. Nothing looks terrible in this game. Some more screenshots and trailers. These are trailers in particular from Bandai Namco that would get content ID'd, so I need to be careful. I'm gonna go back to Mech Hunter. I feel like I was winning more there. Let's just try and wrap up the news, and then that'll be the end of this. Gamatsu has an article, Dungeon Defenders Awakened launches for the first for Switch and PC on February 2020. Dungeon Defenders Awakened, I guess is a continuation of a Tower Defense Dungeon Defenders game. Is it a Tower Defense game? Let's look at the trailer. No, I don't think it is actually a tower defense game. I think it's more of a hack and slash game. Which on the Switch, that's probably not a big enough screen for what you want, and you can see how zoomed in it is. It also seems like a lot of multiplayer gameplay. So can you not play by yourself? That'll be interesting. Let's see. Let's just roll. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article for the PC, PS4. Tokyo Ghoul Recall to Exist launches November 14th in Japan and November 15th in the West. I'm a little surprised how well received Tokyo Ghoul is as an anime. I tried to watch it, didn't see anything I really liked. I'm starting to really feel like I'm just too old for anime these days, and it's probably true. But the trailer's down anyways. My general understanding of Tokyo Ghoul is that people get infected and they turn into ghouls, and they have sort of special powers, but not that interesting as far as special powers. This apparently is a 4 versus 4 multiplayer game. Job's done. So yeah, I'm not super excited by that. Gamatsu has an article for the PC, PS4, and Switch. You know a girl who chants love at the bound of this world gameplay trailer. So, you know is probably a light novel-based visual novel. You can tell the light novels when they have extremely long descriptions in English. So, yeah, another visual novel. That what's funny about this trailer, I think I already watched this, is that it is rated M for mature, but then there is a sidestep. Yeah, I am out of disk space. This is the problem. Let's see. Can we do this, or are we losing the come on, Windows 10, how do you do this? No. No. Clean up the temporary files. Well, I hope that worked. My videos may be screwed up. Probably didn't work. So this whole stream might be screwed up. There's 32 megabytes free. Too many videos. Here, I can delete some videos because while we're at it. But is that too little too late, or is the video screwed up? We'll have to see. So if anybody sees this when it airs, I had just started to clean up the Hearthstone videos from like the past month, and I clearly had not done a good enough job on that. Anyways, we were talking as we're trying to wrap up here about this game. So it has like a little 8-bit game that it shows off here at the end, and that's E for Everyone. And then there's several other, rated M games. So, yeah. The thing I guess to mostly take from that is that there's definitely a case of more visual novels coming out. I also heard that a couple of adult games have come out on Steam, although I haven't seen them myself, so I missed them somehow. And that seems very believable. Turns out that my plugin, the Great Suspender for Chrome, it hasn't been updated in a while, and it has a bug in it stopping it from getting automatically updated. That's another issue. That has nothing to do with anything, I just thought of it. Alright, we have a game on Steam here called Puzzle Bear, which seems to be a single screen puzzle game. It seems a little too simplistic. There's just way too much white space on the screen. It looks like it's a cell phone port. This is a case where a timer, a back button, a score box, something else, or just zooming in and having it take up more of the screen would make a lot more sense. $2.99, English full audio, it claims. I'm not interested in that. Over here. If I can get one victory before the end of the stream, then all I have to do is play a bunch of Murloc games. So there was this article, Mysterium 2019, a very special announcement. This was Mysterium, I believe, is a convention that happens for Myst fans. Let's zoom in. Let's see, a special announcement. As many of you know, we've operated for a long time with science blessing. This enabled us to work with our minds at ease, knowing that Riven's creators trusted us to create a masterpiece with respect it deserves. But we've always operated independently as a group of fans volunteering their times. As we've continued to make progress on the game, however, questions about resources and development, distribution have grown, blah blah blah. We are incredibly excited to announce that we are officially working with Cyan Wells to bring the dream of a real-time Riven into reality. So, a real Myst, effectively, or a real Riven for the sequel game, which, frankly, it needed that. It really did need that. So that's good potential news when it comes out, that Riven, the sequel to Myst, at some point might actually run not like a point-and-click adventure so much, and more like real Myst in a modern engine, which would probably be Unreal or Unity. I don't know how much of the original animation could be used in that, or if it's got to be completely redrawn. I think Real Myst pretty much redrew everything. So this is going to keep hitting people, so it might as well go this here and here. Next we have a game on Steam called Turn Me On, which seems like a low effort name for a low effort racer game. It looks incredibly fuzzy for having bright neon lines. Like incredibly fuzzy on the video. Maybe that's internet problems. Early access, free to play, English only. Looks like it's probably just an infinite runner. It does not look interesting at all. So we'll take that off. Next we have a game on Steam called Corona Nemesis. For a second there I thought that said Korean. What is this though? It seems like it's just a random assortment of garbage. Player versus player Smash Brothers kind of clone. Yeah, nothing that looks interesting. Just looks like it's a bunch of pre-purchased assets. Free to play, English only. Nope, that's not making it to the list. Alright, so I'm not even going to bother to switch back to the America's account and do the Murloc games. Let's just burn through the rest of this news and in the stream here. Here's a game called Use Your Brain, which looks like it's a 4-way Pong with also some elements of brick-breaking games too, which, yeah, it looks like it's terrible. It's $1.99, the English, 22 achievements, so yeah, nothing there. You have about 7 more things. TechRaptor has an article, Bomberman and Contra board games are on the way. It's not directly video game related, but it'll be interesting to see how do you make a board game around the concepts of Bomberman and Contra and see how that really works. Bomberman kind of makes sense because you could have all the movement built around like dice rolls, but Contra, I have no idea. Next, somehow I got to a Kotaku article. It's like old school LucasArts made a game about Cthulhu with a talking cat. This game is called the Necronomicon. So when this comes out more, I'd be interested in it, but I don't even know what platforms it's on because that would require me to understand if Kotaku even bothers to mention that anywhere, and I'm not sure that they do. In the new PC game Gibeus: A Cthulhu Adventure, apparently that's the name of it. I didn't even have the name right. Gibeus: A Cthulhu Adventure, which is on my follow list, so I'd already seen this game anyways. Somebody just reminded me. And that's a great example of how things just get on the follow list and then I forget about them until there's a follow list cleanup 6 months to a year later, which is basically all I can do is just forget about them because there's so many games that potentially are good. I couldn't memorize everything. Next we have a game on Steam called Dissipation. I don't even know what that is, but this really looks like it's just not that interesting. Why they're showing you a video of washing your hands, I have no idea. $9.99, English only. I don't think I'm sold on this. This just seems like it's kind of nothing. Or a bunch of random things. So, yeah. I'm not going to put that on the follow list. Let's see. Gematsu has an article. The PS4 and... what does that say? TOP? What does that stand for? Persona 5 Royale launches spring 2020 in the West. Of course, I could never cover any of the Persona games. I'm getting a growing list of games that I have to blacklist because of DMCA claims alone. Gematsu has an article. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is to feature the Cell Saga, Goku, and Piccolo driving episode. Which apparently was an episode in Dragon Ball Z that I don't recognize, where maybe that's a little bit infamous as a filler episode or what. Probably didn't get aired very often if it was a filler episode. Let's see, is this YouTube family friendly? Close enough. Gematsu has an article. Compile Heart launches Moe-Ro Crystal H countdown website. Moe-Ro Crystal Hyper seemingly incoming. They did the little bubble porn thing where they put in bubbles to make it look like the anime fox girl was naked when she really wasn't. Or yeah. So there's a new game potentially coming in. Got 4 more games. There's one on Steam called Familiar Travels Chapter 1, which seems to be a visual novel tagged mature. Looks like it's a bunch of furries. That's the phrase I was trying to... Anthropomorphized animals. I don't know if you call those furries or not. Actually, you probably shouldn't, because they'd only be furries if there actually was somebody, a human, inside of a outfit, a suit. So I'll put this on the follow list because it might be an interesting furry visual novel, and I'm willing to cover a few of those, and I don't want to just exclude them in general. Full audio English is also a bit of a seller there, but at $12.99 it's probably priced itself out for a episodic release, which is what it almost certainly is trying to be, since it says Chapter 1. Here we have a game that's a bunch of Asian characters called Butterfly Rin. This is tagged RPG Maker. This is probably a RPG Maker Chinese game, maybe a Japanese game. Look, the video's not loading again. Let's see, English is not supported. It's $2.99 and it's Chinese only. So even at that, from what I can gather from these tiny little thumbnails, which is not a lot, this doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look modern, but if you told me this was a game from the 1980s or even early 90s, I would believe you, and I'd be like, okay, this is an old 90s RPG game. The art does not look terrible by any means, so Chinese games hopefully are starting to show a pattern of getting better. Here's a Tech Raptor article. A Missouri game store, Trade in Games, has had over $100,000 of rare games stolen. I don't know why you'd have over $100,000 of rare games in your store, and not with better security, one would hope. Also, this kind of feels like it might have been an inside job, but whatever. Maybe this was one of the biggest stores to have rare games, and that would explain the high price. But if I was running a business and I had $100,000 of any inventory, I would have security there 24/7. Next, we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. This is probably a Chinese-only game, as I guess. It looks like it might be a puzzle game, or... yeah, it looks kind of unique, actually. I haven't really seen anything too much like this. It's 59 cents discounted, Chinese only. Again, does not look bad. Like, I'm gonna have to rant about Chinese imperialism here in a second, just to balance out all the good things I'm saying about the Chinese video games that came out this week. Which, you know, the whole Hong Kong situation very possibly could in fact affect the video game world pretty quickly. Meanwhile, I'm at the Humble Bundle store. 7 days left on the Jackbox bundle, and that's kind of it. The Bohemia Interactive bundle has 15 hours left on that bundle. Let's see. Then Steam put out their top Steam releases. Let's just quickly go over that. For last month, it was a game called Cuba Factorium, never heard of it. Godhood, never heard of it. Field Glory, never heard of it. Earth Defense Forces 5, a little surprised that's in the top 10. Streets of Rogue, Kill Squad, Gloomhaven, Gorn, Nowhere Prophet, Sword and Souls, Date A Live Rio Reincarnation, another adult anime looking game. Automata Chef, Herodotus Lord of the Dead, Love Cubed, or Love Cube, probably another adult lewd anime game. Wolfenstein Youngblood, The Blackout Club, I didn't even know that was out. Oxygen Not Included, which came out of early access. Warhammer 40k Inquisitor Prophecy. The sequel to the troll game Kindergarten 2, which I would call it a troll game. And Custom Order Made 3D2, It's a Night Magic, which I believe this game actually is a full-on sex simulator game when you get it uncensored. Top 3 releases were New Frontier, Dead Frontier 2, Supremacy 1914, the Orville Interactive Fan Experience. I did not even know that existed. The Orville is moving to Hulu, so if you want to see season 3, you have to watch it on Hulu, which is about it. So what I would take from that list is that there's not a lot of good things that came out last month, and not a lot of competition. Alright, so that's where we're going to leave this. I'm not going to bother to look to see if there's any new news. We'll leave that for Monday. So apologies if something big happened, but I am at the risk of losing all my footage here because my hard drive filled up. That's it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.